Welcome to this deep dive on moving to America for work and why a master's degree alone might not be enough. In this video, we'll unpack practical pathways that actually lead to U.S. work authorization, especially if you're a Canadian considering TN status or anyone eyeing H-1B. We'll also cover how multinational transfers can help and why niche skills often matter more than additional degrees. To keep things clear, we'll use diagrams, real-world examples, and a short quiz to check your understanding. Now, to set expectations and guide your focus, let's begin with today's agenda. Here's the plan. First, we'll clarify why the U.S. job market doesn't reward education alone with automatic work authorization. Next, we explore the TN status for Canadians and compare it to the H-1B to highlight the trade-offs. After that, we'll examine alternative options like L1 and O1. Then, we'll cover 3 practical strategies you can act on. We'll reinforce learning with case studies and a short quiz. With that roadmap laid out, let's debunk the biggest myth first. Many skilled professionals assume that a master's degree is a ticket to the U.S. workforce. However, U.S. immigration is not degree-centric, it is classification-centric. The law focuses on whether your job meets a specific visa category's criteria, not simply whether you hold an advanced degree. In other words, your degree can support eligibility, but it does not create eligibility by itself. This is why targeting the right visa category for your career is essential. Now that we've reframed the problem, let's compare the 2 most talked about paths: TN for Canadians and H-1B for everyone else. On the left, TN status is a streamlined route under USMCA for Canadian and Mexican citizens whose jobs fall within a predefined list of professions. It is often adjudicated at the border, avoids the H-1B lottery, and typically imposes a lighter burden on employers. On the right, H-1B is for specialty occupations that normally require a specific degree. It demands employer sponsorship, faces an annual numerical cap, and uses a random selection lottery due to high demand. The implication is clear. If you're Canadian and your role fits a TN category, that pathway should be your first focus. Next, let's visualize how to decide between these pathways. This decision flowchart starts by asking whether you are a Canadian citizen. If yes, and if your intended role aligns with a TN-listed profession, the TN route is usually the fastest path, often adjudicated at the port of entry. If your role does not match a TN category, the next branch asks whether you work for a multinational firm. If so, you can target an L1 transfer after at least 1 year abroad. If not, the final branch considers whether an employer will sponsor you for H-1B, keeping in mind the specialty occupation requirement and the lottery. For non-Canadians, the flow begins directly at the multinational question for L1 or H-1B sponsorship if available. Otherwise, the recommendation is to build niche skills, consider study options, or reframe your role to fit an eligible category. With the decision tree in mind, let's dive deeper into TN specifics for Canadians. TN status is a work authorization under USMCA for citizens of Canada and Mexico performing specific, listed professions. Its advantage is speed and predictability. Approval can often occur at the border or airport, provided the job and documentation align with the TN profession's criteria. The critical issue is the fit between your role's duties and the TN category. Titles and responsibilities must match the TN description. Common evidence includes an offer letter detailing duties, proof of relevant degree or equivalent credentials, proof of citizenship, and employer support documentation. TN status is commonly granted for up to 3 years and can be renewed, but it is limited to defined profession categories. If your role doesn't clearly fit, you'll need to consider alternatives. With that overview, let's walk through the steps to secure TN status. To assemble a strong TN application, start by ensuring your job maps clearly to a TN category. Next, get a detailed offer letter that outlines duties, work site, salary, and a brief justification linking the role to the TN category. Prepare your academic evidence, your degree, transcripts, and a credential evaluation if your degree is foreign. Bring proof of citizenship such as a Canadian passport. Include supporting documents like an employer support letter, professional licenses if needed, and a resume. Choose whether to apply at a port of entry for same-day adjudication, or by mail, if changing status within the U.S. Finally, present your case clearly and answer questions succinctly. With TN covered, let's contrast this with the challenges of H-1B. The H-1B pathway hinges on the role being a specialty occupation, meaning it normally requires a specific bachelor's degree or higher in a field directly related to the job. Despite your credentials, employers weigh the legal costs, time, and uncertainty, which has created a sponsorship drought, especially for generalist roles that domestic candidates can fill. The annual cap triggers a lottery when registrations exceed the quota, introducing significant randomness. Even if selected, the petition must still be approved, and requests for evidence are common. Advanced degrees can improve your chances marginally, particularly if earned from U.S. institutions, but they do not solve the underlying constraints. Now, to visualize the timeline dynamics, let's look at a Gantt chart of the H-1B cycle. This Gantt timeline shows preparation typically beginning in December through February for role scoping and planning. Registration usually occurs in March, followed by lottery results between March and April. If selected, the petition filing window usually runs from April to June, including labor condition applications and the I-129 submission with evidence. Adjudication spans roughly June through September, during which RFEs are possible. If approved, employment commonly begins on October 1st. This cadence highlights why the H-1B route is slow, deadline-driven, and risky compared with TN. With H-1B timing understood, let's address whether adding a PhD is a practical immigration shortcut. Pursuing a PhD solely as an immigration tactic is typically inefficient because the advanced degree cap still faces lottery risk and does not remove the employer sponsorship requirement. The 7 or more years invested represent a substantial opportunity cost. A PhD makes sense when it intrinsically aligns with your professional and research goals, not as a workaround to immigration constraints. Therefore, focus on strategy over additional credentials. Next, let's cover 3 winning strategies you can start implementing now. There are 3 practical strategies. First, if you are Canadian, align your role with TN categories by adjusting your title and duties to match the listed professions, and upskill to fit those job descriptions precisely. Second, consider multinational employers. Build a track record of impact, then pursue an intra-company transfer through the L1 category after at least 1 year abroad. Third, cultivate elite, niche experience. This could be expertise in a rare toolset, a tightly regulated domain, or a specialized research area that few domestic candidates possess. Substantiate your expertise with quantifiable achievements, such as metrics, patents, publications, or a robust portfolio. To make pivot options clearer, let's map them visually. This mind map places pivot strategy at the center, and then branches into 3 directions. Under TN alignment, examples include systems analyst with competencies like business process mapping and basic SQL, accountant with a potential CPA path, and engineering roles that may require licensure and strong project documentation. The multinational path highlights joining a global company, spending at least 1 year in a qualifying role abroad, and then seeking an L1 transfer. The niche expertise branch emphasizes regulated industry skills, rare software stacks, and documented outcomes. This visualization helps you identify where to invest effort based on your background. Now let's see if you can spot the optimal pathway with a quick quiz. Quiz time. The question is, which pathway most reliably bypasses the H-1B lottery for eligible Canadian professionals? The options are A. Pursuing a PhD to increase credentials, B. Applying directly for any U.S. job with a master's degree, C. Using the TN status if the role fits a listed profession, and D. Waiting for a government job opening. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is C. Using the TN status if the role fits a listed profession. TN avoids the H-1B lottery and is often processed quickly at the border or airport. The other options either fail to address the lottery risk or rely on assumptions that do not create work authorization. Now, to consolidate your understanding, let's compare common visas in one snapshot table. This table compares key visa and work authorization options. TN is for Canadian or Mexican citizens in listed professions and often processes quickly without a formal USCIS petition, though a bona fide job offer and documentation are essential. H-1B is for specialty occupations but involves employer sponsorship, a quota, and a lottery. L1 permits intra-company transfers after at least 1 year with a multinational employer abroad, without a lottery. O1 is for individuals with extraordinary ability, requiring substantial evidence. F1 OPT is a temporary employment authorization for recent graduates on student status, which is not itself a work visa. With the snapshot in mind, let's ground this in real-world case studies. In the first case, a Canadian with a marketing master's faced a barrier because generic marketing roles are not TN eligible. By reframing the role to systems analyst, emphasizing CRM workflows, data mapping, and business requirements, the candidate aligned with a TN category and received approval at the border. In the second case, a non-Canadian software professional confronted low H-1B odds and employer reluctance. The candidate joined a multinational firm, built a strong record abroad over 12 to 18 months, and secured an L1 transfer. In the third case, a biotech data analyst developed deep niche expertise in regulatory analytics with tangible outputs such as publications and measurable performance gains. This specialization justified employer sponsorship. Now, before we wrap up, a brief but important disclaimer. Disclaimer: this content is for educational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. Immigration laws and policies change, and outcomes depend on your unique facts. Always consult a qualified U.S. immigration attorney before making decisions. With that noted, let's summarize the key takeaways and next steps. To recap, education alone does not confer work authorization. For Canadians, TN can be the most efficient route if the role aligns with a listed profession. H-1B requires a specialty occupation, employer sponsorship, and faces a lottery, making it uncertain. Alternatives like L1 and O the first of may be more practical depending on your profile. The most effective strategies are to align with TN categories, leverage multinational transfers, or develop niche expertise that is hard to source domestically. Finally, to leave you with a clear mental model, let's close with a simple markdown checklist you can use to plan your next steps. Use this checklist to create a concrete plan. First, determine whether citizenship opens options like TN or L1. Next, map your job duties to a precise visa category description and identify any skill gaps. Address gaps with focused upskilling. Target employers strategically, prioritizing TN-aligned roles or multinational firms. Document your outcomes to demonstrate scarce, specialized expertise. Finally, consult a qualified immigration attorney to tailor these steps to your situation. With your plan in hand, let's close out the video. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, please like, share, and subscribe, and leave your questions or experiences in the comments so others can learn from them too. I appreciate your time and wish you success on your path.